Well, good morning, everybody. Into January for us, so this was our month of travel and our 2 5-day road trips, and the gauntlet of the Big 12 schedule kind of continues. Got us the other night at Utah. If I backtrack a little bit for that trip, I thought BYU, other than playing from behind again, we've got to kind of get that figured out and get out in front of people and not continue to play from behind. But like the rally, thought we did some really good stuff offensively against BYU, and then just really struggled for most of the night against Utah and just didn't find a whole lot of rhythm on the offensive end. Kind of made one little punch there in the fourth to cut it to 6 with about 6 to go, and then just didn't have enough to finish in that situation. So I feel like we've left a couple out there this year. That's, I guess, the frustrating, a little bit disappointing part is there's been some opportunities for us and just didn't do it, but still plenty in front of us. Excited about the team. We just got to continue to get better and then find ways to win some of these close games that we haven't been able to finish. But all in all, it doesn't get any easier. We get Baylor coming up now, and then on the road to a good Colorado team. So the gauntlet continues. Turn our attention to February, and we've got to be really good this month to kind of get us ready for March.
The performance from Sydney Woodley at BYU, especially offensively, I mean, that's something you've probably been just waiting for her to showcase in a game, right?
Yeah, I mean, for Woodley or any of them, really. It's just, everybody gets opportunities. You never know whose night it's going to be, and that's something we talk about quite a bit. Going in, who knew that Woodley would give you her career high, but she was fantastic on the offensive end, which is added bonus. She's always really, really good on the defensive end, But, yeah, if we can just find multiple scorers, and on that night, yeah, she was one that stepped up and really thrived. Just getting to the rim, I thought she was really strong with her dribble. I thought she cut really well, got to the free throw line a ton that night, and then converted when she got there.
How much has matchups factored into some of these close losses? I mean, you take Utah. It's on the back end of a 2-game road trip, so you've got that to deal with. But style-wise, was that maybe a team that's kind of giving you a little bit of problems?
Yeah, well, I would put them probably a little bit in the Villanova. Their motion, their ball movement, they can stretch you and shoot it, and if you make mistakes, they just make you pay from the three-point line. They made 7 threes on us. Like one time we just fell down. Other times we weren't close enough with hands that were supposed to be a little bit higher. So, yeah, stylistically, there was some things there that probably remind you a little bit of Villanova. And there's a few other teams that play that way that we beat. But, from a loss perspective of the 5, those would be the 2 closest comparables.
So it's kind of a perfect storm when you can.
Yeah, we just didn't play well enough. But it had a weird feel to it, though, that game. I don't know why. I don't know if it was the road trip. I don't know. I don't know what was going on. We just could never quite. In the other games, I felt like, okay, we're behind, but we're all right. We're in a decent place. We'll make a few adjustments. I just never. The press wasn't great. I didn't think they ever felt us. Is kind of a term we use. They just never felt, the defensive pressure and intensity until the one run. But by then, it was a little late.
Do you feel good about your numbers, your net, where you are right now, and what you got left to be able to get where you want to be?
Yeah, no, we're in probably a pretty good place from that standpoint. I think the computers like us. The preseason schedule has helped from that standpoint for sure. But I think we have 6 quad 1 and quad 2 wins. So we're in a pretty good spot. We just need to finish. We need to finish it off. We'll have plenty of opportunities. Obviously, this league just gives you that. Most nights you're pretty much in all quad 1 and quad 2 opportunities. There'll be a few that won't be, but for the most part, yeah, we'll get plenty of other opportunities to try to continue to improve the resume.
Mark, Baylor leads the league in blocks by a pretty wide margin. Just what do they do, and how do you kind of account for that?
Yeah, I think they're playing great. They lost the first league game without their leading scorer, and have rattled off 8 straight right since. And so, no, it's a really, really good team. Obviously, well coached. Veteran. And they just, they're great defensively. Their defensive metrics are off the charts. They're solid offensively for sure. That's probably an understatement. They're better than solid. They're really, really good on the offensive end as well. So this is a complete team, maybe playing as well or the best of anybody in our league. So they'll present a great challenge. We've had a couple days off, so we'll get back after it and kind of start that prep tomorrow. It will be a big challenge.
So they lead in blocks, and I think they have the second lowest opponent 3-point percentage. So it's how do you kind of attack that? You go inside, you get blocked, you shoot outside.
Yeah, well, you just keep going. Yeah, I mean, points may be at a premium for sure. But yeah, no, you try to use some of your strengths and against them, I guess. There's certain things you can do to eliminate that. Blocks in our game don't bother me as much maybe as in the men's game where typically in our game, the block ends up going out of bounds. And so you retain possession. A lot of times on the men's side, they can keep the block in play and it's like a turnover or a steal. It can lead to some, offense pretty quickly. In our game, not quite so much. So are you taking the right shots? Did they just make a right play? From a block perspective. But yeah, no, they're very sound on the defensive end. If it leads to blocks, that's great. If it leads to defending the three, then they can do that as well.
You've seen, a good bit of the Big 12, whether it's playing against them or just in film study or whatever. I mean, just kind of your overall thoughts on the league this year. How is it maybe different from what it's been, say, your first 2 years here?
I don't know if it's too much different. It's still just as difficult as it's been. Obviously, there's turnover and players come and go, but no, it's still, quality coaching, hard places to play. The travels can get tough. Need to defend our home court a little bit better than what we have in the past. We've been a little better on the road typically this year, but for the most part, no, it hasn't changed probably a whole lot in my eyes. It's pretty much the same.
Depth of the league different at all?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be about the same probably. It just fluctuates a little bit, but no, still quality every night. And if you don't play well, you're probably not going to win. We've played closer games this year. I feel like, last year, the last couple of years, I feel like we've had some games where we've, ended up winning by 20 plus, and you can play your entire bench and those types of things. And we haven't had really, other than the first one against Houston, every one of these things has been a grind all the way through the final horn. So it's continuing to show its depth.
Coach, having recruited Jordan Harrison since she's been in high school, I'm sure you probably saw a lot of Bugs too, since they played on the same. Just what was that team like that they played on together when they were in high school, and your thoughts of Bugs then and then what you see now?
Yeah. And so they were AAU and high school teammates, both, and so, yeah, I've seen a lot of Bugs. More than I would like now. But no, great kid, great family, great basketball player. Really, and she's just evolved into. You can tell now when she's a senior how comfortable she is. She's been obviously in the program at Baylor her entire career, but phenomenal rebounder. She can score it, pass it. Probably part of their shot blocking comes from Bugs and her ability to defend, and I think defensively she just allows you, she could probably guard all 5 positions, if they wanted her to, 4 for sure, but I'm sure 5 at the same time. So she brings all that defensive versatility, and then just to watch her kind of offensively start to really, really figure it out over her career has been fun, just to see from afar just because of her and Jordan and that connection. And they're still like best buddies, I think, to this day. So it's a pretty tight relationship.
From what you've seen of high school teams over the years, I mean, is that one of the better teams?
Yeah, no, yeah. Their high school team was good. Their AAU team was really, really good because Michaela Williams at LSU was on that team with them. They're going into their senior year. But yeah, the high school team, yeah, and they were coached by Jim, who's just a phenomenal high school basketball coach. So Micah Gray was on that high school basketball team too at Oklahoma State. So you're talking about 3 like all league type, Power 4 kids all on the same high school team, and that doesn't happen very often. So, saw them in high school, saw them in AAU a ton. They were well coached, played together. They just grown up together. Jordan and Micah Gray live like a couple houses, I think, apart from each other, and Bugs was right there pretty close too. So you're talking about a pretty close group.
And then the night Jordan, her magical night when she had 74, I think. Did you happen to see that game or watch it later, or you talked to her about that in recruiting at all? Or?
Well, yeah, we talked about it. We found out that night, what had happened. So we found out pretty quickly, and we couldn't quite figure out how. So I wanted all the details on it. How many threes she hit, and did you pass ever, or were you just launching? But I think it became as it got going and the points got up there, they started to look for her. I think quite a bit just because she was in that, in that proverbial zone, I guess, if you will. So, yeah, that was a special one. I do remember finding out that night and having those conversations. But, yeah, I did not see it.
You get a weekend home game in conference.
Yeah, still a Sunday. I don't know. We're just this schedule has that's been the hardest part. You want to talk, or not hardest, but the oddest part of my 3 years. The schedule this year has just been it's been a mess. I mean, we just went 12 straight days without a day off. Which is why now we're required to take 2 days off, and I don't think we haven't had a Saturday home game right in league. I think we only play one, maybe two, one at home. And I just say the Saturday, that's just your prime day, and then typically like Sunday is your day off, and you can catch your breath, and then you start your week over. And so our week has just I don't know what day it is. I don't know what day of the week it is anymore because there's just been no routine to the schedule whatsoever. So yeah, January it was going to be hard. It was going to be difficult. 6 of our 9 were going to be on the road. We needed to, and I didn't want to just survive it. I don't like that word. We wanted to thrive in it, and we had opportunities to do something really special that month. We're still in a good place, but could even have been a little bit better had we taken care of a couple of other of those games.
You mentioned routine. How do you get in a routine when it's so off?
You don't. I feel like we're an NBA, WNBA type schedule right now. Like there just isn't much of a routine. And the other part, which I know the players probably wouldn't love to hear this, but like we don't really get to practice. Like, you're playing, then you have like the next day, like how much do you do that day? And you have like the following day, then you play again, and that may be an afternoon game. So it just is coming at us in waves where I don't feel like we've had like practice days to get like really, really better and work on us. So it's like, it's like, do you just work on game plan, or do you say, push the game plan to the side a little bit and let's focus a little bit more on us today? And so we're trying to get creative. We're trying to make sure they're mentally and physically fresh for the game, because I still think that's the most important thing you can do is be mentally and physically fresh and prepared. But then now do you juggle the time spent on us, the time spent on your opponent? That's probably been the biggest battle because of the schedule that we've had.
What are some of the skills that maybe have slipped a little bit that you'd like to work on with them?
Well, yeah, I mean, at times we've turned it over more than we would like. Other times it's been okay. The perimeter shooting is something here lately that we haven't just done as well. We're just not shooting it at the level that I thought we were, and maybe just not even as confidently. So maybe being back at home in a comfortable environment helps that one. It tends to, at least the numbers are suggesting that. So hopefully we get back to kind of those, that identity. And there's a couple things defensively we haven't been quite as dialed in that we just need to get a little bit better on that end.
Mark, you mentioned in the Utah post game that they did a good job taking away your interior and your post play. In the past, you've been guard heavy, more of your points coming from there in transition. The balance in being able to go to one versus the other this year, I know you mentioned about the positives of that, but is that where you wanted, or do you think there's more, things you can do to adapt that and say, hey, they're taking this away, we can do that tonight?
Yes, I think we have the versatility to be able to play multiple ways, whether that's through the post players in the paint, maybe through the perimeter. They did a good job of, I don't know if it was just a full-on double, but it was a pretty obvious they were just going to collapse everybody and try to, we call it choke the post, and just kind of take it away. And then we didn't take and or make perimeter shots, and we were turning down the ones we wanted to take. We had a couple post turnovers in there too that we've got to be a little bit better in our passing out of the post when they do that. So something else we're working on, but it's nice to have the options. Where in the past we didn't even maybe have the option to throw it to somebody in there, but when we do, we got to be much better. If we're not scoring, we've got to pass out, we got to move better at the guard spot, and then we got to make perimeter shots if people are going to play us that way. So something we've got to continue to work at.
Mark, you mentioned being a little disappointed in January. If you start February by beating the top team in the league, how much does that change things? Just maybe the feeling around the team.
Yeah, well, I think you just have to be careful. If you get too outcome-based versus process-driven, you can get pretty frustrated, and especially in leagues like this. So, it's not so much the outcome, it's just I want to be playing better and I want to play to our potential. And then if you do, the outcome probably takes care of itself. I guess to answer your question, yeah, for a day it will feel really good, but then you're going to go get on the road and have to go beat a really good Colorado team at home. So either way, you can't get too high, can't get too low, because there's another one coming right behind it that means every bit as much. And I know I keep saying this, but you're either 1-0 or you're 0-1 now. That's it after every night. That's what it equates to. And so you're just trying to go 1-0 every time you take the court. But yeah, it will be a big game. It will be 2 ranked opponents on national TV. So it's a big opportunity for us.
You mentioned earlier getting off to some slow starts offensively here recently, and Ross was asked about this the other night after the Kansas State game. How much can you pre-script going into a game? Like football coaches, they say they'll script the first X number of plays, but how much can you pre-script? How much can you game plan maybe around a slower start offensively if you think that might be a trend?
Well, yeah. I mean, no, you can script it a little bit, but just probably like in football too, if your field position, first possession in football may change the way if you get the ball on the 2-yard line, that may adjust your script than if you had it on the 30, right? And so same thing for us, depending on how it goes. I think you have a game plan going in. I think you have to be ready to adjust over, say we each have 80 or 90 possessions in a game. It's not all, you can't put 80 or 90 new sets together, possessions together, like that would be crazy. So at some point you're still going to go back to this is what we are. This is our identity. And, you do your best to, okay, this is what Baylor may try to do to us based on what we've seen, and they may have a completely different game plan. So then you have to adapt to that. And then we may do the same thing to them. Oh, this is what they see on film from us. And we want to try to tweak some things, but then, you have to be careful going away with your strengths if you're not careful and you try to game plan too much one way or the other. So yeah, it's kind of who you are. You're getting to February-ish now, so you're starting to have a pretty good idea of what each team looks like, and now it's about execution and playing harder, and these things are coming to the fourth quarter, so how important is every possession to you? How good are you offensively? What types of shots are you getting? Are you turning it over late? So there's a lot that comes and goes into it. I think to answer your question, you can plan, but then you better be ready to have plan B and C when plan A doesn't go to script or does go to script, and then you just run out of options.
Mind if I ask you a recruiting question, real quick?
Sure.
Signing period's come and gone. I think you guys didn't sign any. Okay, I want to make sure that's correct. So are you looking more portal then for next year? Is that kind of like the decision that would?
Yeah. We went through our fall and evaluation of the high school kids, and whether it was just money doesn't work out or didn't quite fit, different things just didn't work out for us to sign any. We knew we were going to have some portal influx anyway, so it wasn't, maybe the highest of priority for us. And so, yeah, now, and we may still sign a high school kid or two, might even be international. But either way, the heavy emphasis will be in the portal, yeah.
If you got an answer for this, but I'm going to ask you. How have you been able to avoid losing streaks in your career? That's hard to do. In your entire career, you've never had a team where you lopped that many together, and particularly in the league you're playing in now, it can happen. What you have an answer for that?
I don't know if I have an easy answer. And every league is different. This is the one that's obviously when you get to this level, this is the gauntlet that I've been talking about. And like at the mid-major level, it was, I think we've talked about this, it was like you're trying to not survive the non-conference, but that's where you could get some losses piled up because you're playing and buy games and those types of things. Then you get in your league and you thought if we were one of the better teams, we should probably be able to go on some really good runs where just multiple losses just most likely weren't going to happen. And then you get here. And again, I think it's just the mindset, and obviously you need talent and good teams and great players. And then it's just trying not to dwell on one that can lead to another, to another, to another. And so finding a way to, just move on quickly, have another game plan. Don't get too high, don't get too low. I do get frustrated after losses, but, not too high after wins, but just still trying to be the same person for whether it's your staff or your players that, we're not going to completely lose our minds after a loss. But we're certainly, the tone, as I always say, may sound a little different when we go to film or practice the next day, but the messaging hopefully stays similar.
And mindful of, I guess, your players in terms of the grind at this time of the season. You kind of touched on a little bit about, keeping them fresh, and that big for you?
Yeah, no, for me it is, for sure. And we're still probably not quite at where it's really important, but February typically is the month where I'm probably the most cognizant of, okay, what are we like? And that's where I'm talking to your strength coaches or nutrition or training staff to be like, hey, what was our output? How many miles did we just run in that game? What was the level of exertion? Those things are really important to me, like I said, because if you're tired going into the game, then you're probably got no chance. We can go prep them all we want, but if you don't play hard and you don't compete, then I don't care if we're prepared or have a great game plan or we've studied Baylor and we know everything they're going to do. Like, it doesn't matter. So the most important thing to me is make sure they're excited to be here, excited to be, when the game comes around, they have the right energy, the right juice, all those types of things. And if you do, typically, for us, it hadn't led to too many big old losing streaks.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay, thank y'all.